Hello, everyone. So sorry for keeping you waited, and then we'll begin the webinar. So thanks again for joining our ZIBS Bricks webinar series, the very first episode with the honorable guest speaker from Woxsen University. Today's keynote speech topic will be coded leadership, developing scalable management in an AI-induced quantum world. So before we get into introducing our guests one by one, let me first go through agenda so that everyone can get excited and stay tuned until the end of the webinar. So after the opening, the keynote will be delivered by the Dr. Raul Rodriguez from the Woxsen University, and then we'll have a discussion session with our guest speaker as well as the panelists from ZIBS side. And then we'll have a great exciting announcement of ZIBS and Dr. Raul scholarship, as well as our admissions team will share an admissions information. So please stay tuned until the end of the session and let us know anytime. Just feel free to drop a question at the chat box of the Zoom so that when we reach to the Q&A session, we'll answer your questions one by one. Great. So let me introduce let us welcome these honorable speakers and panelists today. So please welcome the guest speaker and panelist, Dr. Raul Rodriguez from Vice President of Woxsen University and Steven Pinker Professor of Cognitive Psychology. Dr. Woxsen is also a very expert in artificial intelligence systems, multi-agent systems at the European Commission, and has been nominated for the Forbes 30 Under 30 in Europe. Also, let me introduce our honorable panelist, Dr. Srinivas Yanamandra. He's a visiting professor of practice at ZIBS, as well as group head of regulatory affairs and policy at Paytm, a great fintech company in India. And I am the host and moderator of today's webinar, and I'm in charge of Global Partnership Manager at ZIBS, mainly in charge of Asia Pacific region. And today we also have one Director of Admissions of ZIBS from admissions team, Joyce Du. So please welcome all the speakers and guests. Hold on. Yeah. You may now able to see Professor Srinivas as the speakers as well here. He's joining us. Yep. So now here I'll toss my mic to Dr. Raul Rodriguez for his keynote speech. Thank you, Dr. Raul.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction and the invitation to have me here. It's always a pleasure to of course expand the relationship between institutions and expand the knowledge base through these webinars. So if we go to the index in the next slide, you will see the distribution of the session, which is a very standardized distribution, but this session is going to be a bit on the differential side. Normally, when you see this sort of tech-oriented sessions, it has to do with the tech orientation or the tech specs of it, be it the programming side, the AI side, as well as the quantum side. However, there is a component which is normally missed, and which is actually the origin of the latest technologies or emerging technologies, no longer emerging anyway, but this is the actual origin, which is social sciences. So I'm going to be touching upon the human-centric approach to these technologies rather than the tech specs, because we normally tend to forget about this side of it. And we should not forget that we create technologies for humans, not for anybody else. So that is quite critical. And as you can see, the flow is going to go from a general introduction to understand the dichotomies between psychology and quantum, as well as moving towards the leadership by algorithm, which is what I've coined it. And then we'll move into the age of quantum superiority. What is next to come? What is not to come? And what are the challenges, which are plenty of them, by the way. And lastly, we'll finish with a sample on how can it be implemented in organizations, especially from the human resources point of view. So let's start with the first point. So we'll move to the first particular area. Now, an area which when engineers, especially software engineers or computer science engineers, learn programming, they tend to forget about, again, the human centrism and psychology and sociology. Now, if you look at terms like artificial intelligence or machine learning, the fact that the term intelligence and learning are mentioned there, that is a psychological term, and that is based on psychological experiments. If you are well versed with machine learning or with the spectrum of artificial intelligence at large, you will know a term called reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning. Now, reinforcement learning is exactly what we do with humans or even pets for that matter, to teach them what is right and what is wrong, utilizing reward or punishment. Similarly, and this is a very simple example which all of you, those who have children or those who have pets, have utilized at some point, the same methodology in a different context is used with algorithms. So all this extrapolation of social sciences is where the origin of the latest technologies has come from. Now, if you look at the headline, it's talking about cognitive psychology, which is the side of psychology that deals with cognition, basically awareness, and the other side deals with quantum NLP. Basically, there's a combination between machine learning and quantum. Now, machine learning, you may be knowing what it is because the fact that we are using WhatsApp services or LinkedIn algorithms, even simple Outlook emailing with recommendation, or Netflix or Prime or Disney Plus, those are machine learning algorithms at basic level. But then if you move it towards the NLP side and you combine it with the quantum speed. Now, quantum is known for many things. The key area which is known for is speed, that it can generate further accuracy and further speed. So if you utilize services such as Siri or Cortana chatbot based, and you combine it with certain speed, you may be able to train the system at large into recognizing the human knowledge and the human emotions, which is not yet right now there, and make sure that the system behaves more like a human like it does now. Right now, it's a machine. If you ask Siri, for those who have an iPhone, any complex question, it will not have an answer because it's programmed for a certain set of questions and answers. However, if we want to develop it further, we will have no choice more than involving certain quantum algorithms at some point. But this is not easy because understanding and expressing human emotions is tough and it's very complex because humans, unfortunately, we are pretty complex as well. So this is the situation that we occur here. So this will serve as a base mattress introduction towards the next point. Now, in the next point, you will see in the next slide, you will see the overview of leadership and AI algorithms. I'm not sure whether you can see the next slide yet or not. Now it is there. Now, there are two images which I want you to look at. The first one on the left side is a bit of a breaking point for you. If you see, I only specifically push on the term machine learning. I only mention artificial intelligence once. There is a reason for that. Artificial intelligence does not exist. Like what we call AI, there is nothing called AI. It's like saying finance or marketing. That is an abstract bubble field. There is nothing like that. You cannot go to the market and buy some AI. There is no AI. But you can buy systems and you can buy hardware and you can buy software that has machine learning or deep learning algorithms or can be programmed with those algorithms, but you cannot program AI. So AI is basically a marketing term that has been created because it sells well. You cannot sell machine learning. You can sell AI. AI is very sexy as a term. So if you see the image on the left, it's a meme to recreate what society has done with AI. So AI is actually maths, statistics, and psychology combined. If we frame it very nicely in a nice, shiny frame, it's called machine learning. But if you want to present it to the audiences, will be artificial intelligence. So it depends how you want to package the gift. It will look in some way or the other. So we need to come out of this understanding that AI is the future. AI is going to take away jobs. AI is the leading power. There is nothing called AI. so they cannot lead. What can lead is algorithms. And those algorithms need to be extremely reframed and extremely accurate. And alongside that, we need to involve psychology in a large spectrum. The other example on the right is a screenshot from BBC World News. You can see it's a CEO, it's a sample, where he does not utilize people as such for human resources, for example. He utilizes algorithms to process. For example, if you want to speak to the HR department, you will speak to a chatbot. If you want to process your documents, the system will process it. It will be an ML ERP-based system, like an employee server with ML algorithms that will process the documentation from different domains and different departments, but there will not be any people. Now, you may say that we will lose jobs. Yeah, that happens with industrial revolutions. So we are bound to lose jobs at some point, but we have to upskill ourselves. But to upskill ourselves, it's quite important that we understand that whatever we see on social media or in the markets is not what it looks like, and not everything that shines is gold. So we need to keep it in mind. So let us understand that machine learning is at a very, very basic stage at this point in time. It is not extremely advanced. Terminator will not happen, and we will not become iRobot with Will Smith anytime soon. It will take decades for that. And at the moment, we are forgetting, and this is, I see a lot of this in academia and even in the industry, they tend to forget the human side constantly. They don't remember anything. They only think about Python. They only think about Julia, keep on programming. But why are you doing it? What is the ultimate goal of it? So this is something to keep in mind as we move forward. Now, if you see the next slide on the consequences of this. Now, companies, especially MNCs, they may say that, yes, I want to implement machine learning algorithms across my organization. I want to have deep learning, because deep learning, again, sounds very sexy, because one is machine learning, the other is deep, so it's actually deeper. So in your mind, you think it's more complex, but it's actually just a modification of the type of data that you're entering and the type of algorithmic approaches you have. Now, imagine that you do that and you implement it across departments. There are going to be substantial consequences for the employees, substantial, and for the company. You can see some of them listed here, and these are very evidently showcased in multiple countries. And I can give examples as well. If you have a company with 100,000 employees and you run HR only on an algorithm or on a server, the employees are going to suffer burnout, because you do need an emotional engagement. Let us imagine that we are in this webinar and we have Dassault, the host, and she will not be Dassault, he will be a chatbot with an image. So I will not feel the emotional connection. I will feel I'm talking to a machine, which some people may like. But at large, if you look at the statistics, more humans prefer a human to talk to. They will not prefer a machine to talk to. And they will suffer from that stress that I don't have somebody who understands me. At the same time, they will suffer from distress. They will feel extremely stressed out that what can I do? Because the machine is not understanding. If you ask complex questions, the machine will say, sorry, I can help you. Please ask again. And it will go on and on, like Siri, for example. If you ask Siri, you know Siri is actually a very stupid chatbot if you look at it. Whatever level of complexity you increase a little bit, it just doesn't answer. It goes back to the basic. Please ask again, because it's not registered in the algorithm. So again, it will get stressed out. People will get angry. They will get irritated. And that, consequently, and you know all very well, because you are all, of course, humans, so you experience all these emotions. You move on from burnout in a company to distress, because you start feeling stressed, you're not finding a solution. And then you move into anxiety, because when you are burned out and you have distress for a particular period of time, you start feeling anxious, because you need an answer. What to do now? What do I do? Where do I go? All that is very critical. And these are the general stages of life. The company will suffer substantially from tech dependency. And that is not good. And I tell you why. If there is a complete power shutdown across levels, the tech will not work. If there is a malicious software, the tech will not work. If you have malware across domains, and especially with quantum, the system will not work. So ultimately, you will need humans at some point, even to correct those mistakes also. Though even we may think that machine learning can really serve as a purpose to self-program itself, or quantum computing can self-program itself, that is very wishful thinking. I also wish that Tesla autonomous vehicles will not run over people, but unfortunately, there are situations in which only a human driver can actually drive, not a machine. So this is very critical. And we have to remember, we are humans and we are trying to create a digital platform to become humans, which is a bit like playing God, which may not work very well in the long run. So we have to remember that and be grounded and be realistic at certain levels also. And this leads me to the next slide, which are actually questions for you to answer, not now, obviously, but for you to answer, should you wish to answer them probably offline or touch base later on, because these questions really have no answer. People have opinions, but there is no answer. There cannot be an answer for this. I tell you why. If you look at the list of questions that we have here, you can talk about job loss, and you can say that, yes, AI will make you lose jobs. Says who? Says nobody. There are industrial revolutions, and revolutions will, of course, carry on a revolution in the skill set. If in the 1940s, people did lose jobs, but new skills and jobs were created also. So it depends on various factors. If you look at the bias, because the code is programmed by somebody, how do you remove the bias? For example, in police software that tends to identify African Americans as criminals predominantly, how do you remove the bias from a programmer, from a software developer who was Caucasian and who they programmed this code identifying African Americans as criminals? It's very difficult to remove the bias, very difficult. On the other side, if you jump another question, you look at what if the system goes wrong? What if the system goes against you? Like Terminator, the movie, for example, Arnold Schwarzenegger's movie. What do you do? Will you kill the system? Then you are going to kill your decades of progress. What will you do after that? It's a complex question, and you have no solution. And the government can also not have a solution for it. And the last one, which is very tricky and very scary, is what if AI reaches the stage of singularity? Now, singularity is known as the stage where AI for the marketing term, by the way, not because I believe it, but just so it sells well, AI reaches the stage where it's more intelligent or develop more IQ and emotional capabilities and social quotient than humans. Basically, the algorithms have become better than us. What do you do then? What did the algorithms take over you? Then do you take the risk? Not. Think about it. Let us move to the next one. And there's a video over here. Now, this video is by a student of mine from an MBA batch that we have in artificial intelligence. So this is a very simple exercise. I give you an example where we have merged machine learning algorithms merged with e-cloud-based quantum algorithms. And we have done breast cancer identification based on certain medical images. So this is already there with machine learning. So there is no novelty about the process of discovering or identifying tumors in breast cancer. But at the same time, if we merge it with quantum, what we have done is speeding up the process of the processing of the images. And these were some 100,000 of images. And this was done a couple of years back. On the other hand, even the accuracy of the identification, the image quality was improved slightly, not too much, but slightly. So it has helped, and we have tested this with certain doctors. And yeah, there was substantial progress from the machine learning based algorithm to the machine learning quantum based algorithm, where you can really see the quality improving over time. But it's still miles to go for it. There's still a lot of work to be done and a lot of process to be ongoing, because it's a work in progress. It's not yet done. But serves as an example that it is possible. But it is possible with a lot of research, a lot of testing, and a lot of time in hand, which we don't have right now, because we try to push it farther. If we pass to the next slide, you will see some of the example images that were identified as types of breast cancer and type of tumor that were identified by the algorithm. So these are just some medical terms, so we will not get into it, but this is the identification of it and how you can really see the large spectrum of quality that can come with technology, but the technology needs to have the human medical observation and support also very clear and very critical. And if we move one step further, which is the next slide, here we will talk about an area of research, which is, in my case, within my domain, which is the printing of 3D bioartificial organs, also called organoids. Now, I presented the same research project in an AI conference in the US, and the process is very simple in explain, very complex to apply because there are a lot of limitations. Basically, if you take the imaging data of the patient and you transfer it and you extract the key features of it, you try to generate a blueprint, like a building blueprint for the organ that can be printed into different materials. Materials can go from collagen to gelatin, different materials that adjust to the human body, and utilizing various algorithms and various features of deep learning, you can extract imaging and generate a printout, actually a 3D printout of the organ that can work, that can actually act. Obviously, you have to enable certain motor systems within the organ for it to pump blood as well, and there are sort of complications for it. But the main key concern, beyond all technical aspects, the main key concern while producing these organs was the suitability with the host. How do you make sure the host is able to keep the organ and there is no rejection from the body to the organ? So, well, there were certain limitations to it. The key limitation, which I can show you in the next slide, with the process, you can see from the material to the type of algorithms used, the main limitation and some recreation you can see on the image below, very, very simple recreation. There are two main limitations with this is, firstly, you're using deep learning, you're using quantum algorithms combined, and you're using medical data. Firstly, you need to get that medical data, which is private. So hospitals will not give it, number one. Number two, you have to get stem cells to create that adaptability to the body. Where do you get stem cells from? Very difficult. Sometimes in many countries also illegal, so not very prominent to do. And lastly, the most critical limitation is how do you test this in the market? For testing this, you need patients who are willing to take the risk to die, which is not very common. Or you take patients who are towards the last stage of life. That is also not common. So it's difficult to test because you cannot really test it unless it's on animals. That is also not ethical. So you are stuck in the limbo of ethical concerns. Because see, if you see the next slide, there is an image of a small sample heart, which is for a mouse. So that is how a small size heart will look. There is a large size heart as well, which was printed in ETH Zurich in Switzerland for a human. It was not working well for a human, but nevertheless it was printed. But that is the size that comes across. But it's difficult because a lot of ethical concerns in research will be there. And the same will happen when you see in the next slide another example with retinal transplantation, which comes particularly with your vision. This is very complex because here you need to touch upon an organ in the body which is very critical, which is the eye. And the eye is a very critical organ because it's linked back to the brain and linked back to the main key systems of the body. Now here, the best you can do is surgery. Recreating an eye that fits particularly with your brain capabilities and with your neural system, very complex. It's possible, but over the years, and again, ethical concerns. How do you test it? Very, very difficult. I don't think if I ask any of you, will you be willing for me to take out your eye and I put my eye in you, let's see if it works? You will not say yes. I mean, you have to be out of your mind for it. So you will not do it. Consequently, research cannot move forward, which is unfortunate. Now, if we move to the next slide, because I'm a bit short in time, so I don't want to really spend too much time on this. The challenges that we will face in companies coming out of the medical front, there are some of them. Now, these are all, as you can see, and it's very easy to identify, they're all human-based. What is the common denominator that you see in all these problems? Humans. We are the problem and we are the virtue. We are both. So the main problem is always the same. How do I train my employees? How do I form teams where their egos are not clashing? How do I make sure I retain employees? How do I compensate them better? Always same problems. The same problems will arise with technology again. Though, if we move, in this case, I will jump to the 5.1 slide. So 2 slides ahead. Yeah, here. If we move here, you can see how do we make sure we identify the right candidates while recruiting people. Now here, though this is not very legal in many countries because there are privacy regulations like the GDPR in Europe, you can utilize the social or public available data to do social candidate discovery. You can collect data from the different social media platforms, combine it, use RNN, CNN neural networks, and ultimately get a profiling of the person in line with their CV and all the data that you may get from different other sources. Now, this may be legal in countries like India, for example, but this will be completely illegal in the GDPR under the European Union. So you cannot really use these systems across HR departments worldwide. You have to be very careful with the legal limitations. So just like with the medical side, where there are limitations, again, there are limitations here. So we are stuck in both sides. So we have to decide as a society whether we want to have the cake or eat it. We cannot have the cake and eat it too. And we are quite confused on that, and so are governments. Because if you see the next slide, a sample, very simple sample of how to identify emotions with the algorithm and get a percentage basis. This may look very fancy and very nice to be used during interviews, but again, if I use this in the European Union, it's illegal. So again, I cannot do it because I cannot record them without their consent. And if I ask for their consent, they might not give it. And if they don't give it, I cannot do it. So I'm again stuck in the process. So it's a loop. And you cannot come out of that loop, really. But at large, let me move again 2 slides ahead to 5.3. At large, because companies have to take a call whether they want to do it or not do it, companies and governments both. The suggestion would be, based on the research I've done with certain companies, is implement it in one department, see if it actually works. If it works, understand whether the outcome is valuable for you or not, whether you are disregarding the human factor or not. Understand the metrics, whether it actually works in the long run as a long-term investment, make a 5 and a 10-year plan, and then understand the financial metrics of it. But don't forget the consequences of it, which we mentioned at the beginning, the distress, the anxiety that will create, etc., etc. And how to deploy it is very easy anyway. It's in the next slide. And with this, I will conclude from my end. The deployment is very simple. Department 1 works, checked, great. Next, decide whether you want to develop it in-house or you want to do it outsourcing. Now, outsourcing costs you more money. If you want to do it in-house, costs you skills, so you have to hire skilled people so you get money. So don't forget that this is not free, it's very costly. On the other side, you have to decide ultimately whether this is worth it for you. And if it's worth it and the investment is substantial, whether you're going to do it across the company, or you will limit to one department, or you will not do it at all. And again, let me reiterate one more time. There are consequences to it. If you disregard the human factor, there's going to be a large problem over time. And finally, if the system goes rogue and the system becomes autonomous, that is going to be an even bigger problem for you. Because having humans as employees is difficult, but having humans plus a system that goes rogue with you, your life is hell. So be very careful on that. It's going to become a big complication to handle over time in the sustainable environment. And I think with this, we can move to the next slot of today's webinar.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Raul. It's actually an amazing presentation that shows an overview of the development stage of the AI and the leadership technology, and it also showed some scary parts of it. And I can see that there are a lot of space still left for us to explore as well as develop and consider the consequences as well. So we'll move on to the discussion and Q&A session. And I would like to toss the mic first to the Dr. Srinivas, because I believe that he has a lot of questions and insights that he gained from Dr. Raul's presentation. Dr. Srinivas, please go ahead.
Thanks, Raul, and thank you, Dr. Raul, for this insightful presentation. I think you have done absolute justice for the time that you have for a complex topic. And I'm glad that I learned a couple of things in terms of organoids, which is quite a new thing for me, while the implications of the AI for the scanning of the images, and also in terms of doing the surgeries such as retinal transplant. These are all fascinating things that we can see and also hopefully witness it in a personal sense in the years to come. But before I really get on to my specific questions, I would like to take upon the point that you mentioned. All these activities require much more fundamental research, and there is an amount of ethical concerns associated with the research. And you also touched upon things like algorithm bias, and there is a need for transparency. But what I'm observing in the world is basically there is a divergence of the principles on the basis of which this entire research has to be carried out. So we are seeing AI principles that are getting exposed by World Economic Forum. There are international organizations like G20 trying to come out with certain principles. And there are certain countries which are trying to come out with their national AI principles and strategy. So my specific question to you is basically, do you foresee any convergence or any way in which all these AI-related principles can get standardized so that we talk about AI in a kind of a consistent sense across the world, so that the ethical concerns could be mitigated in a more consistent way?
Well, as happens always through history, there can be two things that happen. Number one is privatization of these concepts. If MNCs, namely, of course, Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA, all the big ones in the field, they decide jointly that this is what we're going to do, and this is what it is. And these are the ethical approaches or limitations that we will keep in the picture in order to merge all these approaches. And as you know, whenever these big, large corporations dictate something, we kindly have to obey to it because they lead the market. On the other hand, there can be a government public intervention. Now, this has a risk. Government generally relies on private sector advisors to take the call. So ultimately, again, you're going back to private sector. If the government by itself sets a ministry, like I think it's in Dubai, if I'm not wrong, or Abu Dhabi, I'm not sure which city. I think if I'm not wrong, it's the UAE, but they have a ministry for AI, if I'm not wrong. Now, that may look very nice, like, okay, yeah, very technological, very, very new age type of ministry. The problem is that how do you really define ethical concerns there? Because if I am a software developer, I'm doing my own AI algorithms, and I tell you that I want to develop the next Iron Man, for example, and I want to do it in a very advanced way. I want to become the Tony Stark of 2022, and I want to do it by myself. And I don't care what you tell me as a government. I will do whatever I want because my computer is mine, my algorithms are mine, and I will do whatever I like. You can say, yeah, no, but this is illegal. Again, illegal. I will put regulations in the picture and then do whatever I feel. But there's a risk. If you limit that, the ethical concerns, and you put legal boundaries, again, you are limiting the progress. If you do not put them, you are opening a new risk. So in both the ways, you have a dichotomy. Either way, you are going to lose something. So you have to decide whether we want to slow down or whether we want to risk progress at all. And we will lose progress, and we don't know what will become at some point. So this is the call we have to take. And well, it's up to governments or private corporations for the matter to do it.
I think you have put the dichotomy very nicely, because this is something which bothers me as someone who is interested in doing some amount of review and research in the area of ethical concerns. On one hand, you can't have too much of restrictions so that the research itself gets crippled. But on the other hand, if we don't take an initial step, there is every possibility that things might reach, of course, not to the point of singularity, but there is some amount of point of no return. I think that is a dichotomy. And of course, we're also in the midst of these big tech entities as well, in terms of understanding what's good in terms of the research. So
Right.
I think to only empathize and thank you. Now moving from the research in the medical field that you have mentioned, I also noticed it from the presentation you spoke about quantum computing. Now, coming from financial sector, there is one important element of technological challenge that we all face in finance sector, that is about security. Now, a lot of our security features today in banks, financial institutions rest upon some of the things like two-factor authentication and also existing cryptography techniques. And these are all based upon the fact that it takes years for the purpose of a hacker to break down these security systems. But what I keep hearing when we talk about quantum computing, the processing speed is so magnificent that all these existing security systems can be vulnerable if somebody uses a kind of a quantum processor to break open these security, for example, cryptography techniques. So my question to you is, apart from AI, which is again getting turbocharged with quantum computing, do you see any challenge in terms of if we nurture too much of quantum processing and without having some amount of what you call security features that might impact the financial institution's security architecture? And so I keep hearing about post-quantum cryptography, but I'm not too sure how much we are in the race. Are we in the race of quantum computing, or are we in the race of the quantum cryptography, post-quantum cryptography? Where do you see this risk and also the efforts to mitigate the risk playing out?
Well, we have to understand that humans are naturally anarchists. By this, I mean, when you create a system like quantum, there will always be somebody who says, like, I don't like that. Let me use the system to do wrong. Now, right and wrong is again a dichotomy.
Correct.
It can be perceived differently by different people. So whenever you program and use quantum for cryptography or cybersecurity, for protecting the systems or creating firewalls, there will always be somebody who is doing the same thing for breaking the firewalls. And that is nothing we can help it, and there's no way to stop it. The same way there's no way to stop unethical, again, ethical is a dichotomy, but there's nothing to stop ethical or unethical concerns or practices from anybody. You have to deal with it. You have to try to come to a gray area, common standpoint, sort of Cold War, we can say, where you both agree on center terms that you are not going to cross. Basically, what you are talking about is the equivalent to the nuclear power between countries. So the standpoint will be not to use the nuclear power and not to use quantum for too bad, because then it may go offhand. And if it goes offhand, then difficult to track down. But there is nothing you can do to stop it. If people want to do it, they will just do it. And there is absolutely nothing even governments can do, because at some point, even legal and putting people behind bars will not help. When you kill one person, another person will arise as a follower. So it's inevitable. You have to make sure that you deal with it in the smoother way possible, basically.
I think this is some interesting what do you call the way you have put it. Humans are naturally anarchists, and there is always a possibility of if some innovation comes, there is a wicked mind that is always there to use it in a particular way to manipulate that innovation. And this is a constant process between innovation and manipulation and then re-innovation. So that is a fantastic way to look at the things. But what I also gather from you is basically that there are dichotomies in terms of implementation of ethical principles if it is led by government. And also there are certain challenges if you leave everything to say private sector players. And at the same time, there are the dichotomies that individual researchers will encounter in terms of following ethical principles. So that comes to one other segment of research community, which is academic community. And we're talking here as two important academic institutions, Woxsen and ZIBS. And we have got fantastic pool of researchers who are into this field. So my specific question is, leave about the private sector, leave about the government entities. As academic researchers, what are the kind of considerations that you would propose, or rather what you think are important for anyone who is doing an academic research in the areas such as AI, intersections of technology, law, and society, and also quantum. So what do you, as an academic researcher, would like to uphold and give a kind of a community message in terms of someone pursuing research in this area?
Okay. Well, this answer can go in two ways. One can be diplomatic answer, the other can be straightforward answer. I'll go with the latter since it's more exciting. See, ultimately, as academicians, we have the option of get busy living or get busy dying in our fields. Now, we can do research and we can publish papers and patents and so on and so forth. It's fine. But does this have any social impact at all? That is something to be understood. What is the innovation behind it? That is also to be understood. Whether we are doing any novelty or we are doing innovation, that is also to be checked. Unfortunately, there is no straight answer for this kind of question. We have to consider what exactly and how exactly we want to research on this field. These are fields where you cannot research alone because you need to test with different markets and different people and industries, and they may not like it. They may be reluctant. There are many individuals across the globe quite reluctant to embrace new technologies. They don't want to because they see a risk, which is there anyway, but they don't want to jump into risks. So, as I said, either we get busy living and we really do it and take the risk with certain measures and checks and balances, or we don't do it at all and we remain where we are. But the best way is to jump into the pool that we have always done. The problem is that academicians tend to go with their own social and psychosocial limitations also, such as culture, religion, family, so on and so forth. So academicians are not above all that. They also have their own limitations. Hence, their research also is impacted by it. So it's an important factor to keep in mind.
I think the more I'm interacting with you, I can see the more amount of the progressive mindset with which one should proceed, because coming from the profession that I come from, mostly from a regulatory compliance profession, there is always an amount of caution, conservatism, and always a constant worry about the vulnerabilities. But seeing from the perspective that you come from as an academician and also someone who wants to make a progressive impact on the society, there is always some amount of a challenge someone needs to take and also take a plunge. But try to sort out the things that will come in the way. I think that's more progressive and also a graduated approach rather than trying to always worry about sorting out everything beforehand and make us ourselves crippled in not even making an inch of progress. That's good to see. Now, I'm trying to see if there are any other questions. I would encourage panelists. In fact, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to interact with a personality like Dr. Raul. I would encourage people to give some question and answers. I think there is one question here.
Yes, there is
before
one
I move
question.
on to this, I think this is from Chen. Thank you. Yeah. Chen is asking, thank you for the presentation and discussion. As AI is definitely going to change the way of leadership and management, that may inevitably lead to a mass employment in the future. What kind of skill or ability do you think people have to be equipped with to avoid unemployment caused by AI? I think that after all, this is one fantastic question, not just bothering employees. How does that impact the future of work? Whether there is a work that exists at all for the humans to do?
Yeah. See, not to sound too pessimistic or nihilistic on that, but there is really nothing you can do. I can tell you why. firstly, there's nothing called AI. So this is number one. Number two, AI is not one skill. AI is a multiple set of skills: maths, stats, physics, psychology, sociology, etc., etc. So the only thing you can do is making sure that at least you understand the usage and the basics of applications that can happen. Nobody's asking you to become a programmer. Nobody's asking you to do backend development. They're asking you to at least understand what is the output and how it works, what is the process. You cannot be completely clueless, basically. But if your question is, I have a job, an algorithm is going to come and take out my job, there is absolutely nothing you can do. So please don't think that I will skill myself and the algorithm will not take over my job. No, because the algorithm will not take maternity leave. The algorithm will not take paternity leave. The algorithm will not take leaves. It will not get sick. It will not come late to office because it will not be in office. So nothing will happen. The algorithm is way above you by far. But you can at least bring that human spectrum, understanding how the algorithm works. The algorithm does not understand you, but you can understand the algorithm. That is the only advantage you have. That emotional approach, that your emotions as a human is what actually is your key area.
I think that is a good way to look at it, because there is always a kind of a scaremongering sometimes happening in terms of the too much giving attributes to AI, that it is going to change the world. But at the end of the day, that what you mentioned, the emotion behind the human, the empathy behind the relationship, that is far more important. And I don't think it is personally, there is some amount of time before AI really gets into some of these things, by which time anyway, as a humankind, we would also have made a significant progress. So to a certain extent, there is an upskilling that is required, but that requires your fundamental understanding. I think that's where it is. Let me see if there are any further questions from the audience.
Well, considering the time has been running up, the time moved so fast, the presentation and the discussions were already so valuable, and it was a so rich discussion. So I think we can wrap up here. And I would love to introduce the Director of Admissions at ZIBS to introduce the ZIBS and Dr. Raul Scholarship and our admissions information before we conclude this webinar. So let me pull up the PPT again. Yep. Welcome, Joyce. Welcome,
Hi.
Joyce. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dazzle. And thank you, Dr. Raul and Dr. Srini, for the excellent discussions. I'd like to add 2 points before officially moving to the scholarship and the admission part. Firstly, like Dr. Raul said, interdisciplinary skills is very important. Like the same as in the AI and the quantum world, we are always adjusting the dynamic, changing situations, and as well as the world politics as well. So to equip with those skills, it's essential to having a great global leadership as well as the management skills at the same time. So in terms of that, second, I would like to introduce ZIBS, Zhejiang University International Business School. We are the most global business school in China, and Zhejiang University is the top 5 university in China, located in the Zhejiang province, which is technically the most economically dynamic regions as well. We have born so many entrepreneurs in the fintech areas. For example, Alibaba is born right here in Hangzhou, and we have so many Zhejiang, which is called the businessman in Zhejiang. It's kind of a symbol in the Chinese business as well. So here you can see some beautiful pictures of our campus and facilities as well. Our international campus is introduced in 2016, and we have been a great integration example of a campus in terms of both the West and East culture. So here are some pictures of our current facilities, and we would like to welcome all the potential interested international students to join us, especially from Woxsen or the Indian market student. More than half of our students are coming globally. So we're truly a global business school with a international diversity in the heart. Next page, please, Daso. So there are so many information that you could find on our official website. And here, I'll just briefly introduce, we have one bachelor degree program called Global Communication and Management. Other 4 master degree programs are cross from cultural, the China studies on the business track, as well as the communication and management part. And the last 2 will be International Master of Finance and also the IMBA. All of those 5 programs are open for international applicants, and the new cycle will start from this mid-November onwards. So please, if you're interested, pay close attention to our official website as well as the official WeChat, Instagram, as well as Facebook media. Okay, so here is our official ZIBS Dr. Raul Scholarship. In order to honor and our relationship and collaboration with the Woxsen University, we would like to establish one scholarship under Dr. Raul's name. So in terms of the details of the roadmaps, we are welcome for any students who are interested in this. So any inquiries you can send to my email address or call my line. In the further details we'll also discuss with Dr. Raul. So if you are interested to study in one of our programs, we would offer a range of a certain amount in addition to your tuition fee. And we are very welcome for any international students or Indian students or international students who are under Dr. Raul's recommendations. So here is a brief roadmap on the specific timeline. So after the portal starts in November, we will have a half of year detailed progress onwards. So you will be pre-screened, interviewed, and eventually finally assessed by the ZIBS faculty team. So here is a specific official link as well as the email address if you are interested in certain programs. Due to the time frame, we would not go into details, but if you're interested, you're very, very welcome to visit or ask any questions to our degree program inquiries email address. Okay, I think that's all. And I hand over to Daso and the rest of the guest speakers. And thank you so much for your time. If you have future inquiries, you're welcome to contact us anytime. Thank you.
Thank you again, everyone, for attending this webinar. And please let us know what you think. And if you have any further questions on our admissions team, as well as ZIBS Dr. Raul Scholarship, feel free to contact Joyce and our admissions team. It was really a pleasure to invite Dr. Raul and Dr. Srinivas for this guest as a guest speaker as well as panelist. Thank you so much again for spending your time and having a valuable time with us together. Yep. Any last words from Dr. Raul and Professor Srinivas, please?
I think from my end, I've said enough. I'm not sure whether Professor Srinivas has something else to add.
And I only encourage people to use this opportunity to get this scholarship benefit used, and the fantastic campus that pictures have been showed. I think they're truly mesmerizing in the ZIBS campus, on-campus education. So I would encourage people to really pursue this and get the benefit of the scholarship in the name of Dr. Raul. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Professor Srinivas. This is only the first episode of ZIBS BRICS webinar, and it will also continue collaborating with Woxsen University for the further webinars. So stay tuned on our website as well as social media platforms for the further webinars. Thank you all, and we'll close the webinar here. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.